Welcome to the Longevity Lounge. I'm your host, Ben.
And I'm your co-host, Kaylee.
And we're here together again today with Dr. Joshua Berka. And we're talking about how we can biohack and transform our physical well-being with the aid of BEMER. So with that, let's jump into this. And I'm excited to pick your brains. And I am going to ask an awful lot of dumb questions today.
Me too.
Right, so,
right behind you, Ben.
Yeah, we're going to keep this super simple because I'm keen to really understand everything that's involved here and how BEMER really has an impact on improving our body's function, form, and performance. So let's start out really simple. What is the purpose here of what BEMER actually does? When we lie on the BEMER, what's it doing for us?
So when we're lying on the BEMER, wireless signals are transmitting through the human body, and two things are happening. One of the first things that's happening is energy can't be created and energy can't be destroyed. It can only be transformed. And so when electromagnetic or magnetic fields are pulsing through a charged milieu or a charged physical matter, which is the body, it then will transform from a field into actual electricity. Microcurrents, picocurrents, nanocurrents, which then are moving through the body. So it's raising the membrane potentials of each and every single cell so they can function better. This is called inductive stimulation. And all pulse electromagnetic field therapies are able and capable of doing this just by the nature. Even a cell phone, for example, can transfer energy. But the second part, we're not just about transferring energy. We're transferring information. And BEMER is the only medical device on the planet that I know that is transferring information and targeting these vessels called the resistance vessels, part of the microcirculation, to resuscitate their function. There's a function of movement called vasomotion or spontaneous vasomotion. Trust me when I say there's nothing spontaneous about this. There is a rhythm, there's a cadence, and it's intimately and intricately involved with not just how our heart's pumping or how our brain is thinking, but so many factors involved with how our blood flows and where it goes. So fundamentally, BEMER is about enhancing blood flow and supporting our performance and recovery.
And when you say microcirculation, are you talking about like the veins that I can see on my arm or what?
Yeah, so the circulatory system, we always see this picture with the heart in the middle and all these vessels that are around. True, the heart's part of the circulatory system. Those veins, those arteries are also part of the circulatory system. But the unfortunate, most underrated and most ubiquitous part of the circulatory system are these microvessels. Some of these vessels, many of these microvessels are smaller than a strand of your hair, Kaylee. Wow. We're talking less than 500 microns for you scientists out there. And these are the functional part of the circulatory system. This is where the action's happening. There's muscles embedded within and around these vessels that are resisting the pump of the heart. So many people think that the heart is pumping all the blood through the body. I'm telling you today, it's not. At least it's not doing it alone. It has many, many helping muscles that are not just opening or not just closing. They're maintaining a functional tone based on what you need to do in life. How do you need to perform? Do you need to sleep? Okay, we can relax a little bit. Do you need more blood pressure so you can move or run? Fight or flight? Open up so more blood flow can come. So this is this is an innate part of our physiology to support not just our survival, but our ability to thrive.
Does it change over time? I mean, this is something that works on autopilot, right? It's like breathing and your heart pumping. It's just an automatic function of the body. But does it, as we age, what happens to our microcirculatory system then? Is there an impact from aging? Or?
I love that you said autopilot. In the scientific term is actually called autoregulation. The ability to autoregulate where the blood is moving, how blood flows, where it goes. And back to the microcirculation, does it change? Your physical vasculature doesn't change. This is important. There's patents out there through many of these corporations that are using sensors for finger sensors, optical sensors. Ben, Kaylee, your microcirculation is just like your fingerprint. It's grown out in certain ways to support you as an individual. Yes, we all have it, but the way it looks is special for you and special for you. The way it functions is actually the same for everyone, horses, humans, animals. And this microcirculation or autoregulation begins to break down when the individual is not able to recover from stressful events. We compensate. It actually all starts with the vessels compensating. If we need to run, something serious happens, we need to run out of here. All that blood is going into our legs, our arms. We need to get out of here. If we're digesting food, that blood then is shunted into the digestive system, for example, where we need to break down food. We only have maybe 1.5 gallons of blood on board in our body. That blood needs to be moved everywhere it needs to be based on the metabolic needs and the situation environmentally that we're in. And whether that's a real thing that's occurring, or here's where it gets even weirder, or if it's even perceived. Your brain doesn't even know the difference. And that's the power of being able to visualize, of utilizing the brain. I shouldn't even say the brain, the mind in this way. But back to the autoregulatory system, it begins to break down when we are not recovering appropriately with our autonomic regulatory system. We have the sympathetic, which is fight and flight, parasympathetic, which is rest and digest. And it's not one or the other. It's the combination of them acting in concert with one another so that we can move through life in a smooth way rather than abrupt reactions all throughout life. We want to be responding to life, not reacting. Those who react to life will symptomatically express themselves through inflammatory expression and will manifest the weakest part of their genetics through disease. I mean, these are the facts. And so I'll say this much. There's no diagnostics that are functionally available right now to look at microcirculatory degradation. And the unfortunate thing, some people don't find out until they literally have a heart attack or they have blockages in their vessels or artery. But I'm saying most of these problems don't occur because of the heart or the vessels around the heart, these large vessels. The problem begins in this area of the microcirculation, and to be very specific, the resistance vessels.
I mean, they often talk about kind of your blood as like the life force, for each of us, but it's really more about blood flow, right? Because it's everything that you were just explaining there is what keeps us alive and well, and the degradation of that is what's really costing us our good health.
So you've got the blood itself, which is, I mean, life juice is literally, I've worked with a lot of people from Germany. It's literally translated in this way. And that's the connective tissue, which is carrying all the nutrients, minerals, carrying oxygen with red blood cells, our immune system. But then you have the structure that blood is in, and that's the vessels. And sure, we look at vessel disease and things of that nature, but those have to work in concert with one another. The focus has been on the heart for many, many years that, the heart's pumping all the blood through the body. It couldn't possibly be pumping all the blood through the body, not without the help of these vessels, these resistance vessels. And so it's the combination of the heart being able to keep time, but the resistance vessels being able to resist enough of the force coming from the heart to keep functional blood flow going. And that means both pressure and perfusion. For those of you who don't understand perfusion, this is like a sponge. You need to have the blood perfusing tissues, especially say you're running somewhere. I mean, everyone knows what a cramp feels like.
Yeah.
That's not getting enough nutrients, oxygen, and so it will cramp up. It will seize up literally because it's not getting enough either blood flow in, or what happens most often, waste products out, acid. We produce acid, hydrogen, lactic acid is one of the things that we produce. And if we can't clear out those waste products, that's part of recovery. We can't perform again.
Yeah, that's huge. So when I'm lying on a BEMER, I want to go back to that first question. So you talked about it stimulating our system so that we can improve that sense of blood flow. What exactly, first of all, how does it stimulate it? And then what is the immediate impact of that experience?
Through the inductive capacity, which I talked about first, just transferring energy, there are tons of mineral electrolytes in our body, sodium, potassium, calcium, and these are sensitive. I mean, sorry to bring you guys back to the periodic table in chemistry, but the fact is this: these are placed up on this table based on electronegativity, their propensity to attract or repel electrons. And so in the body, when you transfer energy, meaning it can't be created or destroyed, you're actually energizing that sodium, that potassium, which our cell membranes are like batteries. We have charges on positive and negative on one side and the other. Each and every single cell is like a little battery.
Yeah.
And when you have millions of these cells, little batteries around, they do one thing. They support the function of whatever the tissue, the organ that they're involved in to support the entire system. So that's happening. You're transferring energy. But what also is happening is BEMER's delivering a patented signal, a biorhythmically defined signal, which is targeting these resistance vessels. To be specific, the muscles within these resistance vessels in a very specific way with a staccato rhythm using 10 hertz frequency, which is an alpha stimulation, more of a relaxed state, and a 30 hertz, which is more of a gamma stimulation, more of an alert state of brain waves. And so it's not doing one or the other, it's doing both to help modulate not how much the vessels open, not how much they close, but the tone that we're keeping, not in our posture, but through thousands and thousands of miles of these microvessels, these resistance vessels.
So why is the tone so important in this?
Because without tone, we're just a blob.
Yeah.
Let me give you an example. I'm not going to stand up because we're doing this interview, but if I were to stand up, immediately my muscles would have to contract to keep the blood in my head so I were to not like just fall down and I would pass out. That's, I think we had a previous podcast I talked a little bit at something called POTS disease or dysautonomia, the failure or ability to functionally respond to stressors. And again, standing up is that stressor. So just moving through life, we have to be able to, again, not just open, vasodilate, not just vasoconstrict, but maintain a functional tone 24/7, all day, all night, without even your awareness in so many cases. We only experience or we're aware of emotions, maybe. Stress, anxiety, I'm doing this, fear. This is what happens. Your vessels, in general, if a bear comes in here or mountain lion, first thing you could say, am I going to make it? Can I get out of here? Can I jump through this window? And if that decision's made in your brain, your vessels open up, it moves away, gets into your muscles, gets away from your digestive system, and you react. That's the time to react.
Yeah.
The other aspect is if your body says, or your mind says, oh, based on experience, I'm not going to make it. You'll go into play dead. Yeah. You won't even know it. You'll just drop.
Yeah.
And they're literally...
I'd be on the floor, by the way.
All the blood in your
You play possum?
all the blood or most of the blood in your body goes into the central core. This is called shock. This is what happens when people go into shock.
Yeah.
And so this is a state or a functional state of being able to survive that situation. And the unfortunate part of where we are in life in many, many ways is we're in this constant, I can make it, I can run, or worse off. And nobody generally is in the state of constant like vegetative state, although there are. But as it relates to BEMER is supporting that vascular tone so that individual cannot get ready for a situation. They can stay ready. Yeah. I could be laying down like this. It's harder for me to get up when I'm really relaxed versus when I'm poised to move. Yeah. And so not to be poised to move in a freaked out, what's it called?
Reactive.
Or even like a hyper vigilance, constantly hyper vigilance. No, that doesn't work either. There has to be this balance between being aware but also being relaxed. I call this a state of ready relaxation. Yeah. And this is actually kind of the definition of this zone or this flow state, not just of the mind, but literally of the fluid within our body that's flowing. Yeah, yeah.
Well, it sounds like our body's doing a lot that we don't realize in the moment. But it sounds like when you're laying on the BEMER, it's also doing a lot to your vessels. So can you feel the BEMER?
Some people have awareness of feeling relaxation. I mean, can you feel your blood flow right now? I can't. Unless I'm cold, then I can say, oh yeah, I'm warming up a little bit. Yeah. But in general, we're not made aware of those autopilot, those autonomic regulatory aspects or autoregulation. This is something that is built up and constructed based on our perception of our environment. Is it cold? Is it warm? And do I have to fight an environment? Or are people throwing food at me? Are they loving me? And worse off, not just my life, that information's transferred through lineages, through generations. There's been an incredible study that was brought up following the individuals from Bosnia-Herzegovina with the stress. Not only one generation, but 2 generations, stress hormones and genes that promote stress hormones were upregulated in these individuals. And those kids had nothing to do with the original trauma.
Wow.
This gets really, really interesting. We sometimes get put in situations based on what we're prepared for. And this isn't a bad thing. This is actually a state of how we thrive and survive based on information that has come from our environment and those people, those ancestors that have come before us.
Kind of evolutionary progress of the species, right?
Exactly, as the human species and other organisms. I mean, it operates in very similar ways.
So I'm seeing like loads of potential different applications here in terms of how this can improve our well-being and our health. We've got a lot of professional athletes, for example. I'll take one obvious group of people, and they come from a broad cross-section of disciplines, from pro football players, hockey players, Olympic runners, surfers, snowboarders, tennis players, pickleball players, motocross riders. You name it. We've got it's a real cross-section of world-class athletes. Love BEMER, which I'm really proud of, right? That's kind of cool.
Right.
What is it that is attracting them? Why are they going, this is just what I'm after?
Before I get to them, I want to move to the subcategory of the athlete, but not the high-performing athlete, the the middle athlete, like most of us.
It's me.
Yeah.
Mediocre athlete.
I'm not there yet.
They're into BEMER because they're looking at, how do I perform better?
Yeah.
Those who are at the elite level of athleticism are not just looking at the performance aspect. They're like, wow, this thing is helping me perform and recover faster. And here's the other aspect what BEMER does. Sure, BEMER's supporting the tone of the vessel, but it's also supporting the tone of your mindset, of your perspective, your perception. There's a great book by Robert Sapolsky, medical doctor, called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. A very short one, so it's not a long read, but in essence, it's a simple analogy. Zebras don't get ulcers, and it's compared to human beings because, I mean, here they are in the Serengeti, they're out there, they're eating their grass, whatever it might be, and boom, the lion comes, takes down one of their herd, or I think they're herd, maybe they're, herd.
Yeah.
And literally the whole pride starts eating that zebra, and the other ones were booking out of there. They're go as fast as they can, but they didn't just keep running until they went into the ocean.
Yeah.
They went over a few hundred yards, 300 meters over there.
Stopped and started eating grass.
Hold on, shook it off. Literally shook it off. If you watch the movement, especially of horses, zebras, they have a very unique ability to move their fascia, shake things off, reset. And I say reset because they go back to their normal life. Sure, I'm sure they're maybe thinking in their head, oh, I'm going to miss that part of that one. But the difference between a human being is we want to be able to shake it off. But through our programming, so often we relive these traumas, these experiences, and the threat is actually gone. But in our mind, it doesn't matter. We keep replaying. The nerves that fire together, wire together. So as we think these thoughts, we're literally programming not just how we're seeing the world, even more profound, what we're expecting from the world to come to us, anticipating.
So how is BEMER helping in that process?
That's what I want to follow up with.
Yeah.
In staying in tone, you're able to be in a state to anticipate future events. And I'm not talking soothsayer or psychic stuff. I'm talking milliseconds.
Yeah.
When you're in a regulated state, your autonomic regulatory system is in balance, you are then able not to be on your heels, not to be on your toes, but to be in a state of relaxed readiness where you can move in any direction. This is the hallmark of a top professional athlete. Those individuals who can remain cool and calm in extremely stressful situation. I'm thinking of your husband right now, Division I quarterback, sitting back in the pocket with all this chaos going on, but I made a weird sound like that because what ends up happening when you're in that zone state, you hear nothing. You're completely focused. Time seems to almost be eliminated, and you're able to, what appears from the outside, achieve incredibly, what would be maybe superhuman type of feats.
Yeah.
But all of us are capable of this when accessing that state of being, state of consciousness. You don't have to be a professional athlete for that. But that's why the professional athletes are so attracted to BEMER, not just for its support and performance of the musculoskeletal system through the blood flow, but the ability to balance the autonomic regulatory system so we can then recover back to sleeping as well, to be able to then get into a deep rest so we can then be ready for that next anticipation, the next day, the next threat, if it might be, so that we can approach these things in a way where we're not constantly in fear. We're in a state of engagement with our environment.
About how many BEMER sessions do you think that I need to start being a better, well-prepared wide receiver to catch those passes?
I love it. So BEMER has a patented signal, 120 seconds, 2 minutes repeated 4 times. So that's a total of 8 minutes. Within 2 minutes, your body is being programmed, or the signal is being put into your body of that relaxation state. So it's not something to be, to achieve.
Yeah.
It's actually something to remember. You already know how to do this. You have to remember to be in that relaxed state, the state of fear of being protective. That's a learned state. That's not something that you're just like coming into this world with. And so BEMER really helps individuals remember their balance so they can both perform and recover better. This is the key. And again, not just for your pro athletes. Everyone's under stress, whether you're a dad, mom, grandpa. I mean, it doesn't matter what's going on in your life. I've said before, just standing up from going to sleep is stressful for the body.
Well, this is something I want to ask about. Okay, I'm going to share my own personal experience with using BEMER, and you can give me some context as to what I'm experiencing here, right? So everyone's different as to where or how they hold stress. And I'm not saying that my job is overwhelmingly stressful. It certainly has its moments.
It's okay,
right?
Ben, it is.
It is a little bit.
This is the most stressful part of his job, being in here with us.
Yeah, I wish. But at the end of the day, I've finished my work, and I hold tension up here in my neck, right, and my traps, what have you, and I can feel it. And sometimes, if it's been a particularly intense day or a stressful day, I can really feel that, and it's kind of going up into my head. And if I've been, my job is, my kids just think I sit and type emails all day. Right? They're like, "You got an easy job. You just sit there doing this." Right? It's like, I wish it was
how
that
mindless.
simple. Yeah, how mindless and how basic. It's not a very physical job, but it's mentally taxing and demanding, right? So I come out at the end of the day, I can feel it in my head, I can feel it in my neck, and I go into my room and I put my BEMER on, and I feel really quickly, I feel that tension leave, but most importantly, and this is the bit I wanted to ask you about, I feel my mind relax. Yeah. And I move from that fight or flight state, perhaps, to what you're suggesting, to a calmer state. And it's a form of winding down for me. I tell my wife, I'm like, okay, I'm going for my BEMER session. Yeah. Right? This is my quiet time. Yeah. It's only 8 minutes, but I have that fairly immediate reaction. Is that? I'm thinking of zebras in the Serengeti now. But
might be a book you can read to your children while you're BEMER session.
I mean, when we think about it, you're holding tension in your upper traps, your neck, your shoulders in this way. I might hold it in my lower back. She might hold it in her gut. We all hold tension in different ways based on a lot of things that we learned. But you said one specific word, and it was a 3-letter word and a small one. I sit. When you're sitting, you're setting yourself up in general for stagnation, especially being at the computer in this very unnatural position. Then you got a mouse, unless you have a vertical mouse, that is then holding this position here, which is extremely unnatural. We're doing this for long periods of time. Usually we're not getting up or stretching a lot of times. So this is, and I always say, BEMER will help, but until you remove the obstacle to cure, it's just a Band-Aid. Yeah. So what you're experiencing with the BEMER is, you're targeting these areas and blood flow is occurring because it's actually relaxing the muscles within the vessels, which then relaxes your shield, your protection. If I come over and I go to push you, you're going to tense up. It's just natural.
Yeah.
And that's like a quick thing. Imagine a little, I'm going to push you all day type of thing. Tension builds up, and it expresses itself how we stand, how we move, how we sit, how we're moving and grooving through this world. And so, BEMER is going to support that clearance of that tension by supporting the delivery of blood flow. But more importantly, like I said, with this idea of anticipating the future, anticipatory threshold is what it's called.
Yeah.
It's helping you remember that you're not in that state anymore, and it's okay, and everything's calm. And as you sit with that, you then begin to reset your autonomic nervous system, which then changes the way the blood flows and where it goes through the autoregulation. So in essence, you're taking the reins back in your hands. And this would be, to me, one, I wouldn't say a definition, but a key expression of what we call biohacking. You're actually using something from outside to make shifts and changes physiologically in your body to support your recovery or performance or your betterment in biology, longevity. So BEMER at a fundamental level also is a way to biohack your biology, whether it be locally or, more importantly, systemically. Because you said that mindset and your idea of like, oh, I'm fine, I'm relaxed. This is probably, and I've been doing this for 18 years, utilizing the BEMER, observing more people than I've used, meaning thousands of individuals, and across the board, the first time they're usually on it, I'm like, what do you feel? Very few people say, oh, I feel tingly or blood flow. Most people say, I don't know. I like it. And I feel very calm and relaxed. And I said, then the job's done. Now, the next question is, how long can you remember? How long can you carry that poise, that posture, not just of your, but of your microvessels? No one's thinking of that tone of the microvessels. They only know how they're feeling emotionally. It's up to us, and it's our responsibility to take this, and BEMER is just a tool of remembrance in essence. It's a medical device that supports our body to enhance blood flow, but it only is an 8-minute, 16 or 20-minute delivery, but it can last hours, 10, 12, 16 hours after the individual uses it. For those individuals who have the best integrity of their autonomic nervous system, those are the ones who take it the longest and have the longest residual effects.
This is awesome because, like I said, I feel great pride in seeing all these world-class athletes that use BEMER for recovery, and my simple non-scientific mind can reach some simple conclusions in terms of, okay, it's aiding blood flow, which can help with muscle performance and, like you said, recovery, kind of getting back into a good state and what have you. But I look at it from my perspective, as a busy career-focused person, but also when I come home, I'm a busy hands-on dad, and it's the pace is pretty fast and pretty keen, right? And that ability to de-stress is huge for me, because we were talking on another episode, right, that our ability, if we really want to thrive and succeed, a big component in that, a virtual quality there, is our ability to deal with stress, and not just deal with stress, but also recover quickly from it when it happens, because we can't avoid it. So often, we seek to avoid stress when really what we need to do is learn how to manage it well, right? It's a real part of our lives. But what you're suggesting here is we can be a little bit more like those zebras, right? And through consistent use of the BEMER, our body and our mind can bounce back to a healthy state and help us to regulate that massive bombardment of stress that modern life throws at all of us at a faster pace now, I think, than ever before, right?
For sure. It literally takes me about 30 minutes to get to the same state that I can get in 8 minutes, as far as meditation and breathing and and I've done Qigong, I've done a lot of stuff in this way. And so in many ways, BEMER's not just biohacking. If it were a game, it'd be a little bit of cheating, to be quite honest, because in a very, very quick way, it helps us get back to that state of getting ready for the next insults to come out. And I don't say this in the negative way. Insults are coming left and right at us all the time. how well are we able to respond to them? Get up again, the weeble wobble that doesn't fall down, and do it again and do it again and do it better. That's the definition of resiliency.
Yeah.
You talk about this concept of remembering your body, kind of remembering the tone. I think when I use my BEMER at night, my body kind of remembers that this is the time of night that I use it and starts to wind down. Is that typical?
You're
for
programming
everyone?
it. I mean, it's expecting based on this comes down to Pavlov's dog. You ring the bell, salivation, food. I mean, you can look at the study, and we're constantly expecting things. We want routines. We are like creatures of routine, of habit. It's just the nature. And I recommend this, by the way, when you're using BEMER, you can use it haphazardly, but when you use it at a specific time frame, your body is already moving into that position, saying, "Okay, this is already coming," and it's and this is why I already recommend also, if it's a relaxation state that you seek, don't be walking around or sitting on your computer with the BEMER. Get on your back and lay down flat and assume the position, as I always tell my patients. Assume the position, because when you're lying flat in that position, you're already in a vulnerable state. Your body, you wouldn't be laying down unless you got knocked down or unless you chose to be in that position.
Yeah.
When we choose to be in a lying position, that means that we're in a state of relaxation. And so you're programming your brain to move into that state of what we do in relaxation. And what we do in relaxation is we do all the things we don't do when we're performing. And a lot of that is detoxification, cleanup work, getting rid of the garbage, repairing the stuff that got broken down when we were doing the performance. Why sleep is so important. And in Canada, there's a sleep program that's utilized with BEMER. And in the United States, there's a special program that specifically deploys only 10 hertz, which is an alpha frequency, an alpha rhythm, to really pump the brakes. And so that sensation you get, some people who are really heavily strung, I say that in a nice way, they're more apt maybe to get those feelings or responses by using the special program, which is really just hitting the brakes and using an alpha stimulus of 10 hertz to help really calm the body. I recommend this a lot of times for individuals who have issues or tendencies to not be able to fall asleep. This helps to kind of lull them into sleep and get them into a state of, okay, back to autopilot. I can shut down and my body can naturally get rid of all the stuff that it built up through the day and repair. Why do we degenerate? It's not that we're just degenerating. We're not regenerating faster than we're degenerating.
Yeah.
And sure, this has to do with age, but it also has to do with what we choose to do, our lifestyle. And can BEMER help biohack and support longevity and performance and aging better and more healthier? Absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So we're seeing different kind of groups of people here. You know, we've got the pro athletes experiencing obvious benefits with recovery, both physically and mentally. And I think so much of the game in pro sport is mental, right?
Yeah.
But we're also seeing busy, stressed working people that are using it also to de-stress, to relax, to calm down. You just mentioned, people that struggle with sleep. There's improvements there. And again, in a previous episode, we talked about one of the single most important things we can do to look after our health across the board is sleep better. Yeah. Right? So we're seeing improvements to sleep and relaxation, and recovery and mental alertness, mental calmness, all that kind of stuff. What about those that are because you just talked about aging and kind of aging better. As we get older, the acquisition of chronic illnesses, it's not just about getting one. You start to get 2 or 3 and more. And there's a cost there. But how does BEMER help people age more gracefully?
Yeah, I like this. And I want to start with cost.
Yeah.
Because you said there's cost there.
Yeah.
In life, we pay with currency.
Yeah.
The currency within the human body is called ATP, adenosine triphosphate. And this is a process done by the mitochondria called bioenergetics, the ability to transform and utilize energy. It costs a lot to be sick. In fact, the expression of illness many times is the inability to deliver enough energy to fulfill the needs to maintain what's going on. So then the system degenerates. Yeah. Let's not forget, BEMER's an acronym for bio, electromagnetic energy regulation. In addition to feeling calm, individuals who use the BEMER on a regular basis say one thing across the board: I have more energy. It's 5 o'clock. I got done with work. I feel like I could go do something else. Normally I have to go home and just lay down or watch. They start to remember how they felt when they were younger. And so they say, I feel younger. I feel like I did when I was 20. It's true, because as you enhance blood flow and you're supporting bioenergetics, the mitochondrial function, you actually have more energy to use and direct where you want to do it. Is that to doing dishes? Is that to cleaning the house? Is that spending time with your children, grandchildren, your niece, nephew, whatever that is? Energy is that currency that is primary in the body. And without it, it's like without money, not much is going to go well.
Yeah.
Especially if you want to do stuff. I mean, you could do well without money as long as you don't need a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Same thing in the body. You could fast and you could sit in a retreat and not do anything and still feel pretty good. But if you want to go do stuff, you have to have energy to do that. And BEMER doesn't just support the delivery of energy by transferring inductively the magnetic field to the body. It also supporting fundamentally through driving blood flow, regulating blood flow by stimulating this muscles within the resistance vessels, these microcirculatory vessels.
Yeah, I definitely noticed an increase in my energy, especially Ben and I live in Utah. And so I noticed a real downward spiral in my energy when it's winter. It just gets cold and, I just want to bundle up and stay inside in front of the fireplace. But I do notice a huge increase in my energy. So it's interesting. You said a lot of people
and
say
back
that.
to energy. It's interesting. So many people have come up to me and said, oh, I've had individuals who are perimenopausal and it's like, oh, I'm having my periods again. Or I weighed this much and now I lost weight. I'm not saying the BEMER is going to help you lose weight, but I'll say this much. The way that our body reacts to stress is there's some short-term effects, but the long-term effects is actually storage of fat. And I'm not talking any fat. I'm talking VAT, visceral adipose tissue, stuff that builds up around the midsection. Inside, it marbles through the organs. Not good. These things produce inflammatory cytokines, inflammatory signaling mechanisms that make us not function well.
Yeah.
And so I've had individuals utilize the BEMER and literally lose weight from it, and not just weight, but change their muscle to fat ratio in their body composition, just from utilizing it. And it's not just about the blood flow. It's about getting back in this state of, oh, I'm not feeling that anxious anymore. What's going on? Moving that mindset actually has to do directly with how our body is expressing itself, and vice versa. You can't separate the mind from the body and the mind and the body from the mind. They're literally one.
Yeah.
So your body just overall functioning better. There's positive side effects to that, like potentially weight loss or, more energy like we talked about.
Totally. And not just for you as a person, people around you start to notice things as well. You start to become more interactive. Say somebody's feeling more depressed or anxious, maybe they'll want to engage more. We spoke in a previous episode about this level of longevity and engagement and being part of community, being part of that gratitude we share with one another.
Yeah.
We can start appreciating this within ourselves and be open to receive that in others. And that has an opportunity not just to change the physical being, but changing our entire mindset of how we can then do things or set goals, accomplish things in a more effective way than if we're feeling like, oh, I don't want to get up today. I'm sore. I'm in pain. I'm in discomfort. And so it really is a feed-forward cycle of the opposition of what the detriment or the downward spiral of disease is.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many benefits that come from that. I've still got this image of the zebra in my mind. I love that because
chomping away.
Because anyone that struggles with anxiety or depression or things like that, they kind of get locked in that state that the zebra jumps out of so quickly. Right?
Yeah.
And I mean, gosh, if I was out there and a lion was coming my way, I'd be traumatized for a month. And yet a few minutes later, they're just jumping on the grass. They're feeling fine. Yeah. And you go, how on earth? Keep running, But we stay in that state for too long. And for those that stay in that state, it's almost like some of the side effects of lack of sleep, right? The absence of good sleep compromises our social performance, our decision-making ability, our memory, all of these things get compromised. Yeah. The number of people that have car accidents early in the morning versus in the middle of the day.
Isn't it like less than 5 miles from when you leave home or something like that?
Yeah,
Like
it's crazy, right? It's so costly decisions, workplace accidents that happen because of sleep, because of poor sleep and what have you that people are experiencing. There is a financial cost, a social cost, an emotional cost to that anxious, stressful state and that sleepless state as well, right?
Yeah.
So to me, that's huge, especially, I've since an early age felt a huge responsibility to be a provider for my family.
Yeah.
I don't know why that was, but I remember I must have been about 10 years old, right? And coming home from school, and the mail would always get put on kind of the kitchen countertop, right? And I remember coming home and I just saw a bunch of letters that were addressed to my dad, and they had the little envelope in the letter, in the little window on the envelope, right? Which to me symbolized it's a bill.
Yeah.
Right? I don't get those letters. Right? They're always addressed to my dad.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, I remember looking at that age and seeing that and going, man, one day when I'm older, I'm going to have to pay bills. Right? And what I do for work is going to determine whether or not I can do that well or not.
Yeah.
It's an unusual thought to have as a 10-year-old, but I had it, right? And I remember feeling anxious then about one day I'm going to have a mortgage. Right? Oh my gosh, shock horror. Right?
10-year-old turmoil.
Yeah, but I've been a single income provider now for a family of 10, right? My wife and I got 8 kids. And I've felt the burden of responsibility to manage that well, not just to get through and live month to month, but to be able to provide well for my family. And careers demand stress, and there comes with it a bit of anxiety. And as you push outside of the box and think a little differently, and if you really want to aspire and do great things, you got to live in that stressful space a lot, right? And learn how to deal with it. So for me, something that will help me manage stress well and help calm me down and give me the strength and the energy, the vitality to be able to keep going and make better decisions, make strong decisions, be in the right frame of mind, don't compromise myself, because of the emotional state that I've gotten myself. That's a huge benefit that you don't often think of when you start talking about blood flow. And yet, here we are.
Here we are. And all I can do when you were talking is about 15 years ago, I met a very older man. And I even asked him, because I was like, he had a twinkle in his eye. And I don't know what this is. In Chinese medicine, they call this the spirit Shen. Like you can never see it, but you can catch glimpses of its presence. And I remember asking, like, how do you do it? How do you keep such a good attitude? And what do you attribute your longevity to? And he didn't say sleep directly, but he said this: those nights when I should have been worried before bed, I gave that up.
I love
and
that.
Didn't take my stress to sleep with me. And that alone is one of the reasons why I can sit up here and separate those daytime get on the fight versus I'm not in the fight anymore. I'm here to recover.
Yeah.
And to be able to do that effectively is one of the most fundamental aspects of being in good health, being in good physical, mental, and emotional health.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
The fact that you can use this simply by lying down and doing nothing.
So convenient.
My goodness me.
I know.
Right?
And you can't feel it. It's not painful.
Yeah. Yeah.
It couldn't be easier.
Yeah, there's no pain barrier to cross here.
Yeah.
And it's over the counter. Clinically, when I was using this was a dream to me that it would do. I was looking for something of this nature that I didn't have. I do acupuncture, manual therapy, laser therapy, and I'm always with the patient. And I said, and that is actually a rate limiting step, a one-on-one, on what and how many people I can see.
Yeah.
And so I thought, what can be unattended that can do similar, if not more, than the stuff that I'm doing? And that's when I moved into the field of bioelectromagnetics, but it was such a quagmire of pseudoscience, may I say?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
That there was only one company that stood above putting their money where their mouth was, doing research, development on their products. And this was seriously 18 years ago at this point in time, and that was BEMER. And still today, I stick with these individuals. And I say individuals, this is not just a company. This is a family business. These are people that care, that want to produce products to help people, not just now, but generationally.
Yeah.
And to me, that means something. And I want to be a part, and have been a part of that for a while. And I'm proud to be a part of that.
Yeah.
And the more people that we share this with, to help them remember that balance, that flow within them, they won't just feel it for themselves. They'll be able to share and be a beacon of light for other individuals and literally share that shine.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. It's, you mentioned that there were others. You've been in this industry for a long time, right? And you've worked with literally thousands of people in terms of improving health and so much more. I like how you referred to yourself before as a humanist, which is so much more encompassing, but really puts your heart front and center in the journey, which I really, really respect. But there are others that you said we're just head and shoulders above the rest. In your experience and your observation, what places BEMER head and shoulders above the rest?
All pulse electromagnetic field devices inductively transfer energy. That means they produce energy in specific waves that go into the body and then translate into microcurrent, picocurrents, which then raise the membrane potentials of the cell and supports the function of the cellular or the tissue that those coils are interrelated with. Where BEMER does that, but it also is back to the information, the patented sequence of information, which is actually called the signal. This is where BEMER really shines, because they're programming a signal into the body that doesn't just, again, contract or relax. It supports the modulation of tone, not just within the vessels, but in our entire state of being, our consciousness. How we feel in our body and our musculature actually translates into how we are moving and grooving or not moving and grooving through daily life.
Yeah.
And so for me and a group of people who said, okay, here's a technology, but let's also move into this aspect of programming information into the body. And it's a double-edged sword. I mean, I was former military. You can do these things in a detrimental way as well. I don't know if you've heard of Havana syndrome, but I promise you the idea of guns and that type of war, it's not gone, but it will be soon. Information is the new way of coming together, of growing and building, and also taking down organizations and things of that nature and tearing them apart. So frequencies, these are you can't smell them, you can't taste them, and they're delivered in a way that you generally don't feel them. These can be good or bad, and maybe we'll save it for another episode when we're talking about some of the bad stuff that's out there literally bathing us on a daily basis.
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge.
But as far as a product, a medical device available on this planet, there's nothing that compares as it relates to blood flow and circulation like BEMER therapy. Period. Explanation point. If you're from Europe, punked, it doesn't matter. There's nothing that can compare to it. And where I really came to this understanding and realization is when I had the incredible opportunity to work as a consultant through BEMER, through a Space Act agreement for almost 7 years with NASA. And we can get into that at another time in future episodes.
Tease us just a little bit. What did some of that?
Our relationship started under a Space Act agreement for countermeasures for muscle and bone degeneration for human space flight. When you go to, space is inhospitable, bad place to be. What happens is you start.
I don't have a desire to go there personally, so
I kind of don't either. Other than I would love to fly high enough to look down and see the boot of Italy and take that in as a sensation. But to stay there, I'm out of the game.
I think that would just make my fear of heights just unfathomable.
Well, it gets worse than your fear of heights. As soon as you leave the geomagnetic field of the Earth and start going up, even in airplanes, you begin to die. Don't get mad at me here. I'm the messenger only. You literally begin to die. The microvessels begin to move into a state of protection. Wow. In essence, because what happens when you move into a microgravity situation is all the fluid and blood starts moving caudally towards the head. And so after 2.5 years, we moved away from muscle and bone degeneration into creation of undergarments of spacesuits, which modulates both macro and micro hemodynamics, talking about blood flow movement. and pulsing fields in the body through coils that are embedded into a skin tight bodysuit, basically, to modulate how the fluid is moving in the body. I mean, a lot of things happened, went through COVID. A Space Act agreement ran out. We never fulfilled what's called a CRADA, which is the next level of agreement. Right now, as we're done, BEMER owns their IP, intellectual property. NASA, Johnson Space Center, they own theirs. And both are doing great things right now. But that's when it really came down to my understanding with, wow, BEMER is literally the most advanced pulsed electromagnetic field deliverable on the planet today.
Yeah.
And that wasn't so long ago. I still maintain that. And if there is anything that claims to do what BEMER does, I'm not interested in a tussle back and forth. Please inform me. I know of nothing on this planet that does what it does to the resistance vessels and functional blood flow like BEMER therapy, period. There's other things that increase blood flow, hot therapy, cold therapy does stuff, lasers, red light therapy, infrared, but they don't educate the body in the same way that BEMER educates the body. Once you do the therapeutic intervention, you have residual effects that are just transient.
Yeah.
And so this is what makes this technology a category in itself of one.
Yeah. Any last thoughts? We're getting to the end of our time here, but when you think of what BEMER can really do in terms of helping people in their journey with longevity to live better and live well, what would you say is a big takeaway for you that makes you just go, and this is why I love what I do?
Yeah, for me, you want to biohack your biology with BEMER, you got to do it and not just have it or not just say you're going to do it. Yeah. Commit to it. And here's the biggest one for me. When you're in that 8 minutes, all in.
Yeah.
I don't mean on your phone or anything. You're fully present. You're conscious. You're aware of your breath. You're even engaged in it in a conscious way.
Yeah.
When you do that, you can then take the reins back of your horse and remember the state that you're in while you're laying in that BEMER when you're standing up and you're in the slough of the chaos of life. Or like you wrote to me an email the other day, that this has been a manic week in essence. In those experiences, we can find calm.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. If you want to biohack your life and get things looking really good, you want to be sure to check out BEMER. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you in the next show.
See ya.